Welcome back to the channel. It is a beautiful day. We are having another Chinook. It's like 6 degrees outside. And we're gonna finish off our light switches. Now before we jump into this, someone did kind of mention concern that I'm not an electrician and I shouldn't be doing this, which might be true, but everything is going well. But where I'm at, Alberta, Canada, there is a law here that protects the homeowner, and it is basically a homeowner's law. And I pull what's called a homeowner's permit. Because it's my house, I have the right to do any work. Doesn't matter if it's construction, electrical, glass install, or gas install. I have the right to do the work. It is permitted, and we do get inspections. And all my rough-in, I do have my past inspection. So my rough-in inspection is complete. So what this entails is that the feed from my house to my panel is done correctly and safely. My panel's installed safely. My wires coming into the panel are installed safely. And then how I have all my wires routed through my shop, through the ceiling, showing where all the staples are and stuff, that is all correct. So that was in here on a couple days ago. I passed. So now I move on to installing all my switches, lights, and outlets for the final. It is most definitely a beautiful sunny day. I might even take the car in and get it washed up a little bit. She's looking pretty grimy, a little crusty. But for today, this morning I've been out here putting in these light switches. So I'll give you a little show what's going on. So the ones I already have installed here, these are for my lights. I have them all marked up on top here, so I know where they're going before I put the covers on and finish off the wiring. But all my lights that are in the ceiling are going to be in 3 sets. I'll have a north end, mid end, and a south end. And then I have this one here for the outside light, which will end up being one on a photo cell, an LED photo cell, so it will just be left on all the time. So the next one I'm going to wire up here are for my north fan and my mid fan. The north fan will be the ventilation fan in the back of the shop at some point down the road, I'm not sure when. And the mid fan, of course, is just my ceiling fan to keep air moving, make it a little easier to heat, and make it a little more efficient. So wiring up these switches are the same as wiring up these here. My mid fan, I am putting on a switch at the moment, but at some point I will end up putting this on, like a speed control switch when it comes in. But our first thing I did here was all my lines coming in. So there'll be one for the fan, one for the mid fan, and then my feed coming from the panel. So the first thing I did is ground everything to the back of the box. And next, I will strip off the end of the wire for the switches themselves. So now that we got all the wires stripped back, our next thing to do is our neutrals are all going to be common together. There is no need for these to go to the switches. All the switch does is interrupt our live wire going in to the fan. So these all come together as one. Now you want to get yourself a good pair of pliers. I know bull nose pliers, lineman pliers, because you want to twist the ends of these wires good. You don't want to try to just twist them with your finger. You want it so that when it's done, this cannot come apart. It can't just fall apart. It's solid. And to cover that up, we're going to use some of these morettes. Some people call them wire nuts. And they screw on here. And you screw them on till they're tight. And you want to make sure that there's no bare copper wire sticking past the end of the moret. You want to make sure that there's no chance that if a hot wire come off or the end of one of your ground wires that are back here are floating around, that they poke inside the moret and touch it. It's going to be the same thing for the hot wire. And same thing I did all back through here. You can see the larger morettes in there, the red ones, just because there was many more wires going together. So, got the neutrals pushed back in there nicely. I put these little half moon or half curls on these wires. And that's what's going to hook onto the screws on the side of the switches. Now here in Canada, you don't have to ground the light switch. There is no ground wire or ground screw on here. They do have a few that are in the stores, but those are prominently for United States, and I'm sure there are some places even in Canada that maybe the rules are different. But here in Alberta, we use these switches here with no grounds. So this is the wire going to the fan. Now I don't know if it really matters which one it goes on, top or bottom. All my lines going out to my appliances, I end up putting on the top just so I know where they're at. And then the other one will come to the bottom here and feed the switch. I have pigtailed these in, same as I did on this one here. You got your one main feed, your hot line coming in, and it has to run off to two switches. So one switch is here, one here, and then the other half are my feeds. So now my two switches are installed here, making sure that it does say off when it's down, and it is on when it's up. And also you'll see all the writing is the right way up. So I have my two switches in here. Of course, the top one is going out to my appliances. The bottom one is my feed coming in. And that is all there is to it. Another thing you want to be sure of, see if I can get in here close enough. Always run the wires through the bottom of the screw and go around. You want to make sure that when you turn the screw clockwise, tighten it in, that your wires pull in through the bottom. Now you'll feel them move. It'll try to suck it in a bit. It's hard to see, but there actually are a bunch of little bumps and teeth on the back side of this screw. That'll help hold it in. And the other thing is, you want to make sure that your insulation here, the jacket of the wire, is not underneath the screw. You want to make sure that it's only bare copper that it's grabbing. So now we're just going to kind of fan fold these. We make like a little S pattern so that when we get it close to the panel, they'll push their way in and they'll overlap each other nicely without binding any of the wires. And there we are. Have my 6-gain box completely wired. All switches are in. And one thing we do when we're finished, we look inside here, double check to make sure nothing's pinched, like all the wires move in here. I get my finger in around them, all the way around the switch everywhere. We make sure our morettes are still nice and tight and on there, pushed to the back, and there's no exposed wires or anything coming close to the lives on the side. So this worked out really good. Got lots of space. Switches are done here. I end up installing one over here for my furnace because I have to have emergency shut off down low somewhere so that I can get to in case something was to ever happen with the furnace. So that's on there. And that is the end of my switches. Next step, we're moving on to all the plugs. All the individual plugs are the same as these switches here. No difference at all, except for they do require a ground. They are going to have a ground here. So there'll be a wire grounding the steel box, pigtailed off, and grounding the plug themselves. This is just one I grabbed for a demonstration. I won't be using this. This is a 15 amp standard plug. I will be using 20 amp plugs. They have the one that this hole here has a slot going sideways, and they will be tamper proof. So anyway, we'll move on to those plugs. And also some are going to be doubles. We'll show you how to do a double plug. So I decided if I have my switches installed, instead of doing all the light plugs down there and all the way around the shop, I want to get the lights in. I want to have some better light in here. Now down the back is not a big deal. Just going to have a couple 60 watt LEDs in here, temporary. But up the front, I want to get all 100 watt bulbs in there. And this is just temporary. But my plan is for these lights to be two 40-foot long strips of LEDs. And they'll be broken up into 3 different sections. So what I'm putting in here temporarily is just these. They're like $1.20. They're cheap. The bulbs I already have laying around. I have 400 watters and I have a handful of 60 watts. So like I said, I'll put the 60 down here at the very back where I'm not doing a lot. But we're going to throw these in, which are pretty simple. So the first thing we got to do, just like on the switches, we're going to strip this wire back. We're going to install our ground to the screw here. And then we're going to peel back the neutral and the live and give them a curl so we can attach them to the bottom of the socket. So here we are, all wired up. Got my ground up in here, and I didn't come straight across. I kind of gave it a loop around, and then I left a long tail for it to have a little extra, just in case I have to change this out and I end up breaking a piece off, or I do change my lights like I want to, and I just require more wire. So on the side of the socket here, again, white to light, black to the gold side, and you just make half a loop and tighten it down just like that. And again, just like the switches, make sure that the jacket, the insulation on the wire, is not underneath your screw. Now, a lot of these come with 2 sets of screws on each side. We'll show you why once we get over to that one. But when you put this up in here, the ones that aren't being used, you want to make sure that you tighten these down, that they're nice and snug, so they don't, over time, they don't maybe vibrate themselves out or something like that, and they're, you know, rolling around inside the light plug here. So next thing, these 2 wires here are 2 screws. They come with all these boxes, and they fit perfectly in the holes of these light sockets. So we'll just tuck these wires up in there nice and snug her down. So over at this plug, you can see it's a little bit different here. We got more wires because this is the first light fixture in the series, in the circuit. So it has the one set, which is the power coming in, which comes all the way from the other end of the shop, and then the other wire going out to the light over there. So same thing, white to light, black on the gold, but they have the two screws and this little plate in the middle that joins them together, and that splices the wire so the current continues to the other side. Then up in here, of course, we have our grounds for the box, which are grounded. Every box has 2 screws. Only one ground is allowed under 1 screw. So we got them the same thing, got them looped around with a long tail, so there's lots extra. So we'll just bend this up, give it a twist so those wires kind of fold up in there nicely, close it up, and put a bulb in there. There we are, all closed up. 2 down, 4 to go, and don't end up putting a breaker in the box. So I installed my breaker into the box here, and I ran my lines that I have all marked off, ran the ones down for the lights. So the ground kind of goes in and up and down. I made sure there's enough of like a little loop inside, so there's lots of extra wire, so I could trim it off nice. And that grounds to the panel box itself, which is also grounded to all the sockets up in the ceiling and on the walls. Then I bring down my neutral wire, and it goes into the neutral bar on the middle of the panel. The power's where all the power is coming in here. They're separated, but this is separate here. This neutral bar is separate from the ground bar because I debonded the box. And then the black one, which is going to be the wires, the live wire going out, comes from my breaker, and it's tucked in right nice as well. It goes to the top there. So we're going to shut off my service lights that I've been using, the little trouble lights, make her dark in here, flip some breakers, and see if we got power. And verdict is, boom, boom, boom. We have light. Now these, of course, are just temporary bulbs in here, but these are LEDs, 5,000 lumen, equivalent to 100 watt. Nice bright light. These 2 down the back, they are 60s. They're just 60 watt, 800 looms, just something I had laying around. Like I said, there's not a lot that's going on back here. Most of my work is up front. So when time comes, I'll change them out. But there we are. We now have full lights working the shop. My first full circuit in the box. Everything is good. Don't see any smoke coming out of anything. And no breakers are tripping. Now I can turn lights on and off all day. Now, just in case somebody's wondering, the other one here for the outside light, it is live as well too, because they all run off the same circuit. But what I got done here, I don't know if we'll be able to see it, but I've actually gone up there and put my rets on the ends. It is going to be a little while before I get my outside light, And I just want to make that safe to make sure nothing touches it or any water gets on there or moisture or anything. But that is it for hooking up lights. Next is going to be all the plugs around the shop. So let's get at her.